Okay, according to rumor, we're live.
Okay.
On a 20-second delay, but we're live.
So. Okay. Well, if people are just joining us, I welcome you, and it is my pleasure and privilege to be the host of this afternoon's chat. If you get a bunch of radio and TV people together around a bar, eating goldfish and drinking whatever, invariably the question is going to come up: what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you on the air? And anybody who's had any kind of a career, who all of our guests this afternoon have had, has a ready answer for that. God knows I do, and everybody else here this afternoon does. So I would actually rather get going with other people, and maybe, mine isn't that ha-ha, fall down, just going out of control laughter. But
nothing else broke me up more than that scene.
That's a good way to start. I think we've all had those golden moments. Hey, Glenn, how are you? Glenn Kalina, you're up next, pal.
Glenn Kalina.
Yeah, can you hear me, Glenn?
Hi there. Hi, Wally. Hi, everyone.
I'm good.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Glenn.
Hey, Glenn.
Well, I just pulled a few funny things just from pandemic. I didn't go way back in the career, but just a few things that have happened since March. Early on in the pandemic, we were, of course, broadcasting from home and loading tracks in, and it was a process. Recording the tracks, sending them to someone who then uploaded them into the system at 2400 Market Street.
And it froze.
Oops.
Okay.
It wasn't brain freeze, Glenn. It was screen freeze. Are you with us? Glenn, you there?
Because the person that is loading the tracks is not there. So okay. I can't even resend them and have them reload the new tracks in. So for the entire shift, the previous day's tracks played. Very frustrating. Last week, we blew something at the transmitter at about 5:45 in the morning. So we were off the air till 7:35.
Wow.
And
thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did your pay get docked, Glenn?
What's that?
Did they dock your pay?
It wasn't my fault that we were off the air. Something blew at the transmitter. So we
were off the hook. Your blame elsewhere. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just yesterday, since we're so dependent on the internet now, just yesterday, we couldn't connect to the Entercom internet. So none of us could send our things in for the morning. So that wasn't cleared up till about 7:15.
Wow.
So there was nothing there.
Yeah, and
they're just the most recent. They're just the most recent things that have happened. There are a ton more.
And
but
we all know
back
management loves to go off. Management loves it when you go off the air during morning drive. They're real happy about that.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary Merkin, how about you? Got one?
It's a little blue, so I'm a little reluctant to tell it.
Okay, Jackie, how easily are you offended, Jackie?
Oh, I'm okay.
It only has something.
Okay, Gary, go ahead with your.
It has something to do with a bull.
Okay.
Oh, I'm offended already.
In my early days at Channel 29 as a tech in Master Control, we ran shows, and they still do on the UHF stations, Monday through Friday. Shows that were network shows, and we ran Rawhide Monday through Friday. Very popular because I had Clint Eastwood in it and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, this woman would call. I don't know how she got the number of Master Control, and she would ask. I guess she was too cheap. I guess she spent all her money on the VCR. It was too cheap to buy TV Guide, and she asked, what's the name of the episode that you're going to run tonight on Rawhide? I see John's already laughing. So I wasn't correlating at the time. I was sitting in Master Control, and my buddy Rich was, he had the log, and he was correlating. And I just held the phone off to my side, and I said, "Rich, what's tonight's episode?" And I was rolling my eyes because this woman called every night. every Monday through Friday. I said, what is the episode of Rawhide tonight? And I'm rolling my eyes so he knew who it was. And he goes, Rowdy off the bull, okay? And I, like an idiot, I cover the phone, which of course was stupid because it was too late. And I was like kind of in shock, but I was laughing as well. And I picked up the phone and I went, she says, I heard that. And all I could think to say was, did you see that one? And then Rich fell off the chair. That's the end of that one.
What is it about? I mean, we seemingly have these responsible jobs where we get to talk to thousands of people, but at the same time, what is it about our colleagues there's just like they're on a mission from God to at some point or another break us up, to just have us totally lose control. I don't know. That's radio. Steve Ross, how about you?
Yes. Okay. Well, this is a lot of fun so far. I am just hoping that nobody here who's participating today in this luncheon without any food is going to be pulling a Jeffrey Toobin.
Lesson learned.
Okay.
I can honestly say, and especially at KYW where your mic is open all the time, if there's a microphone in the room, if there's a camera in the room, watch your step. Period. End of sentence. Done.
I agree. And the sad thing about it is I happen to really like Jeffrey Toobin.
So do I.
Jeffrey Toobin went to Harvard Law and he went to all this great stuff and everything else. And the bottom line is he's going to be remembered for this, which is
yeah. And Jeffrey Toobin is also the son of one of the really most famous women at the beginning of television, Marlene Sanders. And so his mom was a very, as a matter of fact, I think she was kind of a staple at ABC till the mid to late 70s. Anyway, I'm sorry, Steve, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I brought it up, but I mean, it's kind of like Pee Wee Herman, forget all he did.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah, exactly.
Right, forget about him and Jeffrey Weiner, well, not Jeffrey Weiner, was Anthony Weiner, right?
Yeah.
These are
a mistake to make.
It's like, forget about it. It's like the old story about, the bridge builder. You can go up and build 1,000 bridges, but if you you got a reputation for life. We've all heard that, I guess. Okay.
Can I say something about Pee Wee Herman?
You may.
He did give new meaning to his famous phrase, ha ha!
There you go.
Yeah.
When I was asked to be on this distinguished forum here today, I was thinking about all the funny things that had happened throughout the course of my career, and there were many of them. And I said, well, I can't go through all of them because that just wouldn't be right, would it? So I thought I'd go back to the beginning, and I'll tell you a couple of short ones. I'm new in the business. My first commercial gig, WBUD, 1260 AM in Trenton. The station was owned by a gentleman named Bill Harden, who was also the chief engineer. So as we all remember on our first commercial gig, you go in, you're apprehensive, you're nervous, you want to do a good job. And I had extra heat on me because I grew up in Oxford Circle in the northeast section of Philadelphia. And if my mother put the radio on the ledge of the window through a lot of static, she could actually get WBUD in Trenton. So there was extra heat on me that I had to do that. So anyway, I'm sitting there in the studio, and we all know what a VU meter is. Mm-hmm. And I'm there in front of the board, the Guild Gates board, and I'm trying to operate stuff and this and that. And I noticed that it's dark and the VU meter is not working. It's on 0. That's, checks modulation and whatever. So Mr. Harden, the owner and also the chief engineer, was a man of very few words. In fact, he was kind of standoffish. And he walked in the on-air studio one day, and nervous me said, Mr. Harden, the VU meter doesn't seem to be working, sir. And he comes over and he looks sideways at the VU meter, and he goes, And he takes off his shoe, takes the heel, boom, breaks the glass, and he goes, "You're right, boy." And all I'm saying is, what kind of a crazy business have I gotten myself into? This maybe I was in there for maybe my second or third day, and this crazy boy comes in with his heel. Yep, you're right, boy.
Well, I have a story for you. This is Lee Richards, Wally.
Hey, Lee, how are you?
And- Good.
Wait, turn your camera on. Right now we have Lucy.
That sums
Okay, Lee,
me up.
you're on. Go ahead.
Well, actually, this ties together a few things you've been saying about what other people do to you at a radio station. Early in my career, I was first a news anchor at a small station, and the guys there gave me quite a welcome surprise. I'm doing my first newscast, and I already knew to stand up for everything. I always work standing up. Now, let me first describe to you, this was an AM station where we had to switch the transmitter at sundown to a different direction and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So the transmitter was right through a big glass picture window. And that's all that separated the studio from the transmitter. So while I'm doing the newscast, trying to sound as good as I could, remember, I really just went on the air there, 6 of the guys went into the transmitter room, lined up in front of the big picture window, turned around, and dropped their drawers.
No kidding. Oh my God. These days, that would involve a federal investigation.
By the way, I kept talking.
You do.
I did.
I thought I was offended by Bull. Wow.
Yeah.
I can take that to a whole new level.
I'm sure you
Oh,
can.
I'm sure. John, have you ever had anybody drop trowel?
No. The worst I saw, the one I did was, if you remember, like the old wooden crutches, they always had that sort of flesh-colored rubber thing on top to protect your underarms.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Somebody was on the air reading the news. I took the rubber arm off, unzipped my pants,
Oh, no.
stuck it coming out of my pants, opened the door, and then slammed the door on it. But he got me back because while I was doing a show one time, he came into the studio very quietly with a garbage can, dropped his pants, totally dropped his pants, sat down on the garbage can, and made like he was going to defecate.
Oh,
I think that's the only time I've ever used that word. On the air, I would say crap. All right. But, and what I didn't know was in the garbage can, there was a waste paper basket. And in the waste paper basket was a jar of peanut butter.
Oh.
And the guy, as he's sitting there and he's making all the faces and all that stuff, puts his hand into the can. Now pulls it out, and he's got peanut butter on his hand, but I don't know what's going on. And now goes,
oh,
Oh my word.
I just lost it. The record just tracked. It went to the next song, and there was the dead air in between the tracks. I could not get myself back together. So
I understand.
So he got even. Let's just say he got even. Right?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
How'd you get even, John?
Oh no, I did. I did the rubber penis in the door, and even he did the garbage can. So
Okay.
Any other rubber penis stories?
I
You
a couple of Wally. I can't tell all the.
We were just going to go. You knew that it was going to involve somebody dropping their pants, somebody exposing themselves. You just knew that was coming. No way you could talk to a dozen people who've been in broadcasting that didn't get mooned at least a couple times. Okay, so Laura, are you with us? Laura? Laura? Okay, no Laura. Eric, how about you? Funny stories? Eric?
Eric, turn your mic on, Eric.
Trying to get my mic on.
Okay.
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 I was.
Hold on, Eric. Hold for a second. I've got Laura. Laura, go ahead. I'm sorry. We had a little trouble connecting, but we're fine now. Go ahead.
Funny story about radio?
I've got too many of them. I passed to Eric.
Okay, Eric?
Okay. I was a co-op student at those days, WFIL FM,
Oh, jeez.
engineering, and we used to have a lot of fun with the people in the office.
Mhm.
And one day the secretary came up to the control room, whose name, she was Henrietta. Okay, very nice lady, except that we were chasing her around the control room, and as the SID rolled on one of the tape machines, she accidentally backed into it, and it made a great technical error report. We had a lot of fun with it. Okay, she was the hit of the WFIL stations in those days with the report that we wrote up.
Just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
when this episode happened, what was WFIL FM's format?
We were playing, depended on the time of the day. We were all automated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
all on a Schaefer automation. And I say, as the station break rolled, she just happened to back into it.
Okay. Oh, God. Hey, Gary, do you have one? Gary Merkin?
He's muted.
His mic is dead.
Yeah, no, I was just remembering something at WHYY. I started my career as a tech at WHYY Channel 12 in Philly. And I ended up being the nighttime car leader for a year or so. And, you know, in those days, there were no commercials. Everything was public service announcements, and they would promote shows between shows, and they would just use slides and audio text, audio cards that previously recorded by the announcer or a live announcer. So the days of the live announcer. So we were in a break between shows. I had a slide up and we were promoting something. And, you know, remember the slide projector, the RCA slide projectors with the dual turrets and all that. That's what we had at an RCA film chain. And in the middle of the thing, a fly walks across the slide. I don't know how it survived the heat from the lamp, but it walks across the slide from one end to the other, one side to the other. Now, in those days, they had the deviation report, they called it. And if you had things happen, you had to put down the incident, you had to put down the reason.
Discrepancy.
So I put down the incident, fly walked across slide during promotional whatever reason. And with a question mark, I put to get to the other side of the slide. He called me up to the office the next day. I wonder why.
Was that the same fly that was on Mike Pence's head in the debate?
I was just gonna say, yeah.
I don't think they lived that long.
Related?
I thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen, or even had to address with management. So,
Anyway, I was thinking, and this is far from funny, but when I saw the debate last week and I saw that fly on Pence's head, one time on A in Philly, I was interviewing a man, and he had a very responsible position with the city. And the reason it was on is because his son was murdered, and he was a wonderful guy, and he'd forgiven the murder. They'd caught him, sent him to jail for life, and the man was basically talking about how he had, in his heart, he'd forgiven the man for taking his son's life. And so it was just about as serious as it gets. And as Steve Sachs will verify, Channel 6 did everything first class except insect maintenance. Every summer, it seemed, we would have problems with flies. There was one summer it was really bad. So I'm in the middle of this interview with this guy, and he's beginning to cry because he's talking about losing his son. He's beginning to cry and how, you know, God helped him through, and God helped him to accept the fact that his son was gone, and the man who was responsible for it was very contrite. And the biggest friggin' black fly I've ever seen in my life lands on this poor guy's head, and he's bald. So it's not like the fly can hide inside the hair, because there is no hair. And I'm thinking, oh God, please get this over, please. And I was right in the middle of one of those segments where, you know, it was designed to be a 7 or 8 minute segment. And if I bailed early, we didn't have enough stuff at the end of the program to fill. So I had to let him go. It was just torturous. And I kept praying, God, please.
Couldn't you just hit his head?
This poor man. Oh my God. But,
Wally?
I didn't have the heart to tell him when it was over.
You know, the thing about the Pence fly, is that if Mike Pence didn't have that snow white hair, no one would have ever known
Yeah.
to fly with his hair.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, you're right. Steve, as long as we're talking about good old Channel 6 and their inability to combat flies, I'm sure you have about a dozen Channel 6 stories.
Well, I have a couple of them, but the one I was just I didn't even think of it till I saw you, was the one with Johnny Paycheck. And he was in those days. I guess it was you. You could, in those days, you could smoke on the air. Nobody said too much.
Yeah.
And Johnny Paycheck came in, and I stage managed it, and I had to put the mic on him. The first thing putting the mic on him almost blew me away, because this is at like 9 o'clock in the morning. All I could smell was peppermint schnapps. I'll never forget that smell. And he's smoking a cigarette, and the cigarette's dangling out of his mouth, and it falls into his crotch, and he doesn't know it. And I'm getting ready to throw a time cue, and I start to see a little bit of smoke, and then he reached, and we went to a spot, and that was it. I mean, he didn't say anything. I'll never forget that scene. But the great AM Philadelphia story was before Wally arrived. Was with Dave Roberts. The person was David Brenner. And so before the show, the show had two stage managers. Ed Roberts was one.
Yeah.
I was the other one. And Bill, this is after Bill Russell. Anyway, Dave Roberts tells me before the show, Steve, we want to surprise David Brenner. We're having his parents and his family come in at the end of the interview. Mm-hmm. So after the guest, before David Brenner, do not take the chairs away. Leave the 5 chairs up, and that's it, so that we don't have to make an issue when we bring his family in and surprise him. But I'll interview him first. But no matter what happens, do not take the chairs away. Mm-hmm. Fine. That's the instructions. So now we do the show and everything goes, and David Brenner's the last guest. David Brenner comes in and they do the first part of the interview, and Dave says, take the chairs away. And I said, Dave, I can't take the chairs away. I'm sorry. And Dave says, well, okay, that's all right. And David Brenner turns around and says to me, he told you to take the chairs away. I said, David, I can't take the chairs away. I'm sorry. This isn't a commercial. He says, well, why can't you take the chair? That's your job, something like that. He starts in on me. I says, I can't take him away. So he says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take him away. I says, you stand up. I'm usually very mild, but I says, you stand up and the union's going to walk out the door. And he sat down. Now, I also don't know that Dave's whispering to him like, the help we get around here these days. Stuff like that. So now we go into the next segment, and again we go to another commercial, and now he comes out, and we had an audience there, and Brenner says, this guy should be fired. You people on the air, he's saying, you have no idea what's going on in the studio. He should be fired. And now we go back into the show, and I look up, and who do I see standing by the door about 2 minutes later at the far entrance is Larry Pollock and Charlie Bradley. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking, oh my God. And Dave Roberts was also called up. And Dave, I had told, Ed Roberts, I had told Ed, the other stage manager, whatever you do, don't touch the chairs if he asks you to move the chairs. And I told him what was going on, but I didn't know about all this other stuff with Brenner. So now I see Charlie standing by those two guys standing by the door, and then we go to another commercial, and then they announce the family coming in with the 5 chairs, and they tell David Brenner why I did not move the chairs. I was told not to move the chairs. So that, Brenner sort of laughs about the whole thing, that he looked like a damn fool, which he was. And at the end of the show, Brenner said to me, he says, you're the only guy that ever pulled. Usually I could smell practical jokes. You're the only guy that ever really pulled one off that you got away with it. He didn't sound too happy about it. I saw him about 3 years later. He still remembered the story, what happened to him. And but that was quite a show. So that was one of the AM Philadelphia that Johnny. There's a lot of shows, but working with somebody like Wally, I gotta say, was such a pleasure. And no matter what went on, Zaza Gabor's dog, they kind of watered the flowers while Wally said, "Am I right, Wally? Didn't you interview what was Zaza?"
Yeah.
And didn't the dog do a little bit in the back of the set? Her poodle.
I didn't see it myself, but I've heard tell. Yeah.
And
I would add to that, and this is a very brief story. In all honesty, in my first year at Channel 6, I sucked. I thought I was very weak on AM Philadelphia. It really wasn't the kind of talk that I did because I was doing more newsy, kind of issue-oriented talk across the street at CAU. And I kept thinking that first year, gee, it's delightful to be on TV and this is a wonderful place to work. But what am I doing here? Because we're doing makeovers and cooking segments and all that. And I knew that was, back then, that was kind of part and parcel of what a morning show was. And so I thought I'd live with it. And the mistake I made is to try to be Dave Roberts Jr. because he'd been so successful on the show. And the reality is, as you all know, you can only be yourself. So ultimately, I made my peace with that. But during that time, when I was first starting, I was maybe a week or two into the job. We hooked up with Wanamaker's. At the time they were doing, they would have a theme for merchandising. And this particular theme was Italy. And they just went, you probably remember those kinds of sales. They went whole hog. They would get men's clothes, women's clothes, all from Italy, and they'd make a big splash in publications and all that. So one of the things Wanamaker's did is they brought in 4 or 5 Italian chefs. So they were demonstrating their thing on our stove. We had a stove that we always used for segments on AM Philadelphia. So they were demonstrating their thing. And I was talking to, I remember the guy's name. His name was Chef Chiga. Nobody told me, though, that Chef Chiga did not habla Espanol or Inglés. He only spoke Italian. So he's doing his thing, and he's got a towel with him in his left hand, and it catches on fire. Now, this is about the time where chefs are starting to develop a personality. Paul Prudhomme was a big deal. Chef, who was the guy with the German accent?
Chef Tell.
Chef Tell. Yeah, you would take a leak. So this chef from Italy is doing his thing, and his towel catches on fire. I think that this is part of his act. So I just let him go, and the guy gets this more concerned look on his face, and the fire's still going in the towel. I thought, okay, well, fine. He burns the towel, and it's starting to get pretty big. And he kept saying the word fuoco, F-U-O-C-O, which is Italian for, you'll never guess, fire. So finally, it was Steve or Bill Russell or one of you veterans.
I think it was Bill.
Standing beside the camera and again, realizing that I'm in the job like 2 weeks. And so I'm standing with this guy, and I finally realized this is not in the script. This is not a shtick. He's really doing this. That towel's really on fire. And I think it was either Steve or Bill Russell that said, "Wally, it's a real fire. Get it out." The guy's just going on and on in Italian. I'm going, I mean, he could have been calling me 5 different kinds of profane names. I wouldn't have known. But that was just my misspent year or two before I really got comfortable with the job. Eric, are you back up with us now?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, when I was with the WFIL-FM, one of the things that I did every day, every morning at 11 o'clock, we had Larry Ferrari live playing the organ. Okay, and he would make jokes about his engineer. Okay, and occasionally some of them were kind of digs. So I went into the AM studio and I got some carts from Long John Wade. And while Larry's on and he makes a comment, the first one I hit was, "Oh no." Okay, I got a message from Ralph Wendy, who was a TV booth announcer. He almost cut his throat while he was listening to Larry play. And then another time, Shirley from the billing office was in there, and she came in, and Larry's playing something to her for because it was her birthday. And before she got finished, before she could say anything to Larry, I hit one, "Oh, I could kiss you." I got a message from John Richer, but he said he had gotten a lot of phone calls from the viewers or from the listeners that it was really okay for the engineer to say something, to have a say. So I was told that it was okay to do this as long as I kept it just once a week or something, and I didn't get any carts that from John Wade that were not appropriate for it. But we had a good time that way. And Larry enjoyed it. Okay, we talked afterwards.
Larry was truly one of the sweetest guys that I've known.
He was great. I mean, I enjoyed working with Larry.
And Jeff, you're up.
Oh, that's me. Okay. It's 1968. I'm working at a little station in Hanover, Pennsylvania, and I had a nighttime top 40 show. And every once in a while, I would take an album that I liked, and I'd play a cut from that album, maybe once an hour. Well, I had this album at home, which I liked. It was by the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. And I don't know how many people are familiar. They're a British novelty band.
So 60s.
My favorite band.
And so I decided I was going to play this. They did a little satire on The Sound of Music. They took the song and they made fun of it.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. I was 22 years old, and so that was my 22-year-old humor. So I thought I would play this cut. So I play right through it, and it's over. I'm going into my next record, and the station manager barges into the control room, and he's fuming. He didn't think it was funny. He takes the record off the turntable, smashes it across his knee, and walks out. And as he's walking out, he turns over his shoulder and says, "Listen to a song before you play it on the air." So I thought my career was done. I thought I was gone. But after the show, he was fine, and everything was good, and I kept my job.
Wow.
So,
Wally, if I may just on that, talking about playing something you shouldn't play, or it's not an unauthorized cut or whatever else. I got fired from WMID in Atlantic City for playing the long version of Shaft.
How long is the long version?
Why is the case? Well, I'll just tell you the whole thing. What happened was they had on the short version, which was around 3 minutes. Back at that time, everything over 3 minutes was essentially taboo.
Sure.
So the short version of Isaac Hayes' Shaft was, they say this cat Shaft is a bad, shut your mouth. I'll talk about Shaft and we can dig it. The long version, to show you how different times are and how much times have changed, is the long version was, you see this cat Shaft, they say he's a bad mother, shut your mouth. I'm talking about Shaft because he said in the long version, mother. He's a bad mother. And then the backup singer said, shut your mouth. Because I'm talking about Shaft, but in the short version, they say this cat Shaft is a bad, shut your mouth.
I remember
so
that.
The inclusion of mother that made it, awful. And I was handed my head.
Wow.
Laura, you're up next.
It ain't the first time.
Okay. So this is a terrible thing that we used to do. But back in the day, when you would have the little studio on the side of the main studio where your news guy would be reading the news, a little booth, we used to go over there and we pull the microphone down below the window level. And then we would remove the light bulbs from the microphones from the board. We would take them out and leave them potted up just a little teeny tiny bit. So if we had somebody on the air that we weren't fond of or something was good, we would sit in the news booth on the floor with the mic pulled down, and we would wait until, maybe the guy's music would start and it'd be, here's John. And we would go, we'd make, barnyard noises. And he'd look down, and of course, nothing's lit, nothing's live. It's just his mic. Okay. Yeah. He'd start to talk again. And then he'd start talking. We would do this to him all the time. And is that the kind of story you want to hear here?
No, I think
This is the kind of stuff we used to pull on each other. It was terrible. Or we'd wait till somebody would be in the bathroom, and then we would just, pull the wire to the mic, to the speaker in the hallway. And afternoon guys, they're regular. It's the one thing you can say about them. And we always knew when the 8-minute song would come on, when you're playing a whole Sweet Judy Blue Eyes back in the day, you knew what was going to happen. And we'd pull the wire, and you'd hear, down the hallway, and then we put back, pull it, and then you'd hear, and the door would slam open, and you would hear the sound of some guy hopping down the hallway with his pants around his ankles trying to get it up there. They never thought these things were funny, but this is what we used to do.
No, I mean, I think probably 3/4 of us, if not all of us, remember MacArthur Park, which was number one, a great record by Richard Harris, but number two, it was a fabulous go to the bathroom song. It was 7 minutes and 20 seconds long.
Oh, I started out in country with the 2-minute Charlie Pride songs. A girl having to run down the hallway and share a bathroom with the guys who were on the FM at the same time. And when Pancho and Lefty came out, and that made airplay at 3 minutes, oh, that was radio heaven for women in country music back then.
I bet it was. And
Wally? Wally, if I may, on the same thread. Many of us remember when WYSP was at 16th and JFK Boulevard in the suburban station building. And they had just gone from Mantovani to beautiful music to progressive rock. And I was on the original jock staff. I was on 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. And the nifty thing about that was, for people walking by JFK Boulevard, they could look into the window of the radio station and see the jock on the air. So that was pretty nifty. But the problem with that radio station and its location was, if Mother Nature called, it was not a convenient thing to proceed to. So what happened was, you would have to walk out of the radio station, through the door, down an extremely long hallway, and then you have to walk down the stairs and walk back the other way in order to get to the bathroom. So this usually required the playing of Iron Butterflies, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, which was about 17 minutes, because that was a serious commitment, because it was so long, Amazing.
And God bless those songs too, for getting us through stomach aches and all the rest of the things that we went through. Bill, you have one to share with us? Bill?
Yeah, I remember when I was at Drexel, we time shared with WP, Philadelphia Wireless Technical Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this whole routine where at the end you'd hear somebody, broadcast day, blah, 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 blah. And then you hear somebody kind of turning the station off and locking the door and closing. So one night we decided to try a live production of they shut the door, their transmitter goes off, we come right on, and you hear footsteps, somebody knocking on the door, this door creaking open, and then we go into our thing. And about 30 seconds after we get into the sign on, phone's ringing. It's the guys down there busting their gut laughing, because they thought that was the funniest response they had ever heard to them signing off. So, it's what college radio was fun, because you could get away with certain things back in the old days.
Yeah.
Hey, it's
for sure
almost commercial.
Jackie, how about you?
You skipped me.
Yeah, let Lee do it.
Okay, Lee, go ahead.
Well, Gary had mentioned Channel 12 a little bit earlier, and actually Channel 12 is where you and I met, Wally, back in the early 80s.
It is.
A handful, just a few of us. Bill Weber, remember, and Joan Dinnerstein.
I do. And
Gene Crane, Wally, and me.
We would go there and help them with their begathons. Yeah.
Yeah, the begathons, which were numerous at the time.
Yeah.
So I have a couple Channel 12 stories. The first one, I was doing a special show, and Mike Schmidt was on, and I went to introduce him. And I said his name, here's Mike. And then I said his last name without the schma. But I corrected it so fast. I don't know if anybody really heard it but me. That's one. And speaking of that Channel 12 auction, which was so wonderful and so huge, I actually was thrilled the year I got to co-host with Malcolm Poindexter. And we had a ball. So we were demonstrating a bed that was up for auction. And I said to Malcolm, I said, the only way to do it right is to jump up and down on it. And he said, okay. And somewhere there's a video of Malcolm Poindexter and I jumping up and down on the bed like kids. And that's my Channel 12 stories.
Well, when one thinks of Malcolm Poindexter, one doesn't exactly think of a guy jumping up and down on a bed.
That's why it's so funny.
I have a Malcolm story there with me.
Yeah.
And 2 WHYY stories. I don't want to dominate this, but when I'm done with that, I promise no more. Malcolm, of course, worked at Channel 3. Him and I were pretty close. We really liked each other. He laughed at all my jokes. I could pick up the dictionary. In fact, I made him do it. I picked up the dictionary when I said, I bet you'll laugh at anything. Let's start the dictionary. Aardvark. And he'd fall down on the floor. Anyway, he comes in one day to our electronic shop, and he's carrying his tabletop FM radio. Okay. And he comes in, he goes, Gary, my radio is humming. I don't know why it's humming. And I looked at him, I go, because it doesn't know the words. He had a habit of pointing and repeating the punchline. It doesn't know the words. And then fall down on the floor. Okay. The WHYY stories. One of them.
Yeah.
There was another correlator there. His name was Cal R. Okay, his last name began with an R. He was the evening correlator before I became the evening correlator. And when they did the promotion stuff, sometimes, most of the time, it's just one slide, but other times it was more than one slide. And the script called to go to black between slides, change the slide, and come back up during the text, during the playback of the text cart, or while the live announcer was talking. Well, one day we decided, I'm not saying I was the mastermind, but it was decided, the control room was rather dark except for the monitors, and a script light where you could follow the script. The script told you where to do your phase to black and come up again. Mm-hmm. So somebody decided, I'm not saying it was me, to connect the script light to the dimmer board in the studio. Okay. And there was a monitor in the studio, which we hooked up so the person at the dimmer board could see what's going on the air, the line output. Cal got into this thing. We knew it was coming up. We knew it was multiple slides. We knew it was fade to blacks. So every time he faded to black on the switcher, the dimmer board person would bring down the script light along with it. So you can imagine Cal, without that script light, you could not see the script. You could not see the copy. So he gets to the first slide, and he gets to the point where he had to fade. He fades to black to change the slide. And of course, the script light goes with it. So now he can't see. And meanwhile, he's flabbergasted that the fader on the switcher is taking the script light down. So now he's forgotten all about live television. He's on the air and all this. He's going, what the hell? And he starts moving the fader up and down, and the studio person is following him pretty close with the light, with the fader controlling the script light. So now the people at home are seeing this one slide go up and down out of black during the reading of the text. So I thought it was hilarious. We never got caught or anything like that. I don't know how he wrote it up on the deviation report. The other thing was, there was a power divider problem at Channel 12. Was when they had their transmitter out in Glassboro. It blew 20 sections of transmission line. So they were off the air. They were off the air for several days. I was in master control, and we got sent out there in ships to help. There was a tower crew, of course, to remove and replace the thing, but we had some techs had to be there to help, with the transmission lines once they got down on the ground. So I'm in master control. He must have been taping something, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's William Goldman, the head of the theater group. He was the president of whatever the WHYY. He wanted to know why we weren't on the air. This was like the middle of the day. I said, well, sir, we've had a problem at the transmitter, and go into technical difficulties because I knew he wasn't a technician. But I really didn't know he was a technician when he said to me, well, why don't you put a slide up telling people that? It took me 15 minutes to try to explain to him that without a transmitter, you can't put up a slide. We all know that there's people in this world that have no idea what a transmitter is, especially a television transmitter. I kind of explained it by saying it's a radio transmitter with pictures. We'll leave it at that. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see. Let's pop around here. Eric? Yo, Eric, are you there?
His mic is off and he's disappeared.
Okay.
Do you hear Inagata-Davida in the background?
Wally, I have another one.
Hey, Pat Delsey, are you with us?
No, I don't know if Pat ever logged on.
His mic is off. I'll tell you, I'll give you one.
My screen went black. Help! I faded to black.
Okay. Hopefully
Wally?
he's back on. I've got his name on the screen, but you're right. I've got an indication that neither his camera nor his mic are on. So let me move along. Let's see. T.
Wally?
Morgan. Yeah. Okay. T. Morgan, are you there with us?
His mic is dead.
Okay. Okay.
Come back up to the top, Wally.
I'm sorry?
Come on back up to the top and ask. I have a story.
Okay, go ahead.
Another one. And
Go
it's
ahead.
bad.
Lee, why don't you let us see you? You know, your pictures are nice, but I like to see you too.
I'll see you in person.
That's what she looks like.
Not for a while.
And I'll give you an Anna kiss when I see you. That's
Okay.
how long it'll be.
Go ahead.
Fanatic there too with you?
This is a quick.
Wally, can you hear me?
I can, Pat. Yeah.
Pat.
The story, and then we'll go right to you.
Well, I guess it goes back to my first day in broadcasting. I was hired at WWBZ in Vineland. So I go down there, and while I was in class in college, I used the name Don Stevens because my real name, Pasquale Del Signor, it was difficult to even pronounce. So I get there for a show that is going to start at noon. I get there about 11 o'clock and find out that I'm going to be the DJ for the afternoon. And my newsman's name is Milt Stevens. So I can't use Don Stevens. Now I'm going crazy. I'm going to pick a name, and I got about a half an hour or so. I go into the studio, write all kinds of names down, and nothing's coming up. And finally, I thought, well, I should use the first 5 letters of my real last name, Delsi.
Okay.
I go in the air and open the show, and I'm doing the music, and my newsman doing the news is Milt Stevens, as I said. And my first commercial, in those days, you read the commercials. There weren't too many tapes. So I do the first commercial, and it's the White Sparrow Inn on Delsey Drive.
Okay.
The second commercial is an auto agency on Delsey Drive. The first 8 commercials in the first hour are all on Delsey Drive. And the program director, Dorothy Carlson, comes in and says, Pat, you're a genius. They'll never forget your name. I said, I wish I could be that sharp to have thought of that. It never got to my mind until I read that first commercial. But it was funny, you know. So then on the air, I was there for about a year, and I would joke on the air saying they named the Delsey Drive after me, but they spelled it wrong.
Okay, Jackie, you got to tell a story.
Well, geez, everything that happened on Remember When, which is the limit of my broadcasting career, everything that happened was funny, and nothing was really supposed to, but everything just did. We were so off the cuff, but the funniest thing that happened to me was that I wound up on Remember When with 2 of my favorite guys in the whole world, Steve and Jimmy.
Yeah.
And that I was actually welcomed onto that radio show, and I enjoyed every minute of every day of every every broadcast. But I think maybe one of the funniest things that happened, and it was I guess it wasn't supposed to happen, but we burst into song. We were talking about All in the Family, and Steve started singing the All in the Family theme.
When Billy played.
And you did the Edith part, which was so funny. Go ahead, do
Oh,
the
parade.
Guys like us, we had it. I was doing his part, and he was doing the Edith part. But it was a lot of fun, and we hope that we'll be able to do that together again, in hopefully in the not too distant future when we take our show on the road. And we go retirement.
I know this ages all of us, but I do remember when Saturday night was a big TV night for first runs. That's when the Mary Tyler Moore Show was on, and also that's when All in the Family was on originally. I remember I was in college, and so help me God, this is true. Senior English, and our professor was Dr. English. Joe English was his name, and he taught English. And he came in one day to class and he said, I just saw the most interesting but bizarre television program I think I've ever seen last night. And it's based on a British comedy, but it's called All in the Family. And I kind of recognize some of the people in the cast, but it's not so much the cast, it's just what they say. My God, it's just off the wall, which for 1970 it was. And but I do remember when Saturday night was not throwaway TV. Saturday night they put the good stuff on. Mary Tyler Moore was on it Saturday night as well.
Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who I have not gotten yet. I've got Eric and I've got T. Morgan. And Eric, have we ever gotten Eric?
Yeah.
I think he was on.
I thought Lee had a story, and
okay.
Back to Lee.
And well, yeah, Lee, you were about to tell that story when Pat jumped on. So go ahead.
It's okay. It's not that funny. I worked at many places. My first day at WPSC in Princeton, New Jersey. I went on the air following the most wonderful young jock of 17 years old, Andre Gardner, who I work with today at WMGK. So anyway, when Andre left, there were two turntables. We alternated. He left the turntables on at the speed 45. We never discussed it. My first song on the air was an album cut, 33 and a third. Guess who never changed the speed? So the first song on the air sounded like the Chipmunks. It was rock and roll, not good. And then I was called into the program director's office. His name was Tom Taylor, wonderful man. And I thought I was going to be fired on the spot. And he said to me, and this is all he really said to me was, you'll never do that again, will you?
No.
And I never did.
When you said that, it made me flash on this. When I went to Flint, Michigan, I got out of the service, went up to Flint, Michigan, started out as an all-night jock, did jockeying long enough to know that I really had no future as a jock. I had to do something else. Fortunately for me, the talk thing came along at just the right time, and I latched onto it, and it was very important for me, God, the rest of my career. But the rule of thumb on anybody that uses a turntable is, number one, you're going to put it on the wrong speed. Number two, you're going to knock it off. You're going to back your arm or do something, and you're going to knock the needle off the record. Or number three, somebody's going to touch it. And they just, I remember a guy from the Flint Journal was doing a story on me, and he was following me around. So he was in the studio with me, and I just happened to, most of our songs were on cart, but some of them we used the regular record for. So of course I was using the regular record for a song, and he just reached over and said, "Can I see that?" and just lifts it up on the air live. So yeah, where there's a turntable, there's the potential for damage. No question about it. Let's see, who else we got? Anybody who hasn't spoken yet?
I was going to tell you something with Bill White. I don't know how many of you have been involved with the sports, but if sports, a lot of different things happen. And one of my first jobs was to stage manage Bill White at a pregame show at the Phillies. And Bill was really a super guy to work with, but I'm out at the ballpark. George Walsh is the director, and Lou Klein was the producer. So I'm stage managing, and before the show, I went over the time cues with Bill White. And of course, stretch, everybody knows that, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, and wrap it up. So we're doing the show. It's about a 5 or 6 minute show. And Bill White, I went over the cues with Bill. So George says over the headset, give Bill a wrap up. So I give him a wrap up, and he keeps talking, and I give him a wrap up, and this show's live, and he talks even more. And they're screaming in the headset, they're cursing at me, and of course he gets cut off the air. And Lou Klein and George Walsh come out and they start yelling at me and everything else. And I was, I gave him a wrap up. He just kept talking. So when the dust settled, I go over to Bill White and I says, Bill, didn't you see my time cues? I'm jumping up and down doing this. And he looks at me and he starts laughing and he says, Steve, I'm so sorry. In baseball, that means go around the bases. And you threw this time. So I thought you men kept talking. So we finally got that straightened out with everybody, and I lasted there 44 years. But but I'll always remember that. And then one other quick one, that working with animals in a studio or anywhere, we used to do the Steel Pier show. So it was an 18-hour day, and we'd get there around 5 o'clock in the morning to start setting up at Steel Pier after driving down from the station. So the doors were locked. And so of course at 5 o'clock in the morning, we're all going around trying to find an open door to get the equipment in. And I find this door that's unlocked, and I walk in and it's pitch black. And I hear this squeaking, beep, 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 beep. And I don't know what it's a weird sound, this weird squeaking sound. And I find a place to turn the lights on. I turn on, what is it? There's a big tank with porpoises, or porpoise, I don't know what you call them, porpoises in the tank. And and I walk over and I hold my hand up like this to see what's going on. I did. I'm by myself. Nobody's around. And all of a sudden the porpoises start jumping up to me and jumping up and down. And I almost forget I'm playing with the porpoises now for 5 or 6 minutes. And they're doing like all these crazy things for me. So now I tell the crew. And the crew comes in and we're all playing with the porpoises, having a great time like you would at a kennel with the dogs, only they react so fast you can't believe it.
Oh, yeah.
So now we finally have to stop and we set the Steel Pier up. Now we're done and we go back down to the porpoises to play with them. And all of a sudden the trainer comes and he starts yelling at us. What are you doing to my show? What are you doing? He says, you got these porpoises doing tricks and you're not feeding them. So when I go do the show today, they're not going to do a damn thing. They're just going to, because they're not being rewarded and all this stuff. So that was my story with the porpoises.
Well, I am thankful to everybody. I mean, this is really like old home week for me. I've spent the last year pretty much with my head in academics, and also a wonderful thing has happened to our family. We have a granddaughter, and my daughter Erin had a baby 2 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
So I hear her upstairs with my wife, and she's about a month away from the terrible twos, but she's the light of my life. I can't tell you how much I'm crazy about her. So, life moves on, but just listening to all of you, first of all, let me make sure, is there anybody who has not spoken yet? Anybody?
I've got one for you, a story that goes back to the 60s.
Okay, Pat.
This is before the Flyers came to town.
Mm-hmm.
There was an organization that started a hockey team. It was the Eastern Hockey League. And they were going to play in Cherry Hill in South Jersey, a place called the Ice House. So they come into the station. We were broadcasting a lot of sports at the time. We were doing high school sports, college sports, and pro sports. So they came to the station to see if we would broadcast their games. And we gave them a price and said, okay, we'll be back in a few weeks and get started when the season starts. So they come back about a week before the season starts and said, listen, Pat, we haven't been able to raise enough funds to do the game. We're having some difficulty there. Is it possible that you could do only the third period of the game, broadcast only the third period of the game? And I said, well, sure, we will. So we got Brian Hart, Gene Hart, who was with the Flyers later on, of course.
Yeah.
And he's going to do the play-by-play. I'm going to do the color. And we are doing games only the third period of the game. It's like doing the ninth inning of the Phillies broadcast. It was crazy, but we did it for several seasons. And then later on, the Flyers came to town, and the team in Jersey was called the Jersey Devils. And then they stopped playing. They stopped that particular league. But it was crazy that they would actually only raise enough money to broadcast a third period of each game. That's crazy and weird.
That's you know what, that's a good opportunity to. I don't know if you're going to top that, but that's a good opportunity for us to vamoose. Bill, I wanted to thank you. You've done all the technical work for this, and it's gone wonderfully. And did anybody have anything to add?
I want to thank you, Wally. You did a great
sure.
job emceeing. Thank you so much for helping us out.
Sure.
And I want to thank everyone who participated, from Lee Richards, Steve Ross, Tom Lemaine, who wasn't here, Glenn Kalina, Pat Delsey, John DeBella, Ed Eisen, Eric Address, Jeff Benton, and Steve Sachs. You all did great, and thanks so much.
You're welcome. I have one quickie for you.
Corralling everybody. Pat, did you have something?
Are you there?
Yeah.
We had all kinds of broadcasts on WCAM years ago, and it was like middle of the road music from midnight to 6 p.m. And then after 6 p.m., we would do specialty broadcasting back then. And we had at 7 o'clock, I did a program called The Spiritual Ship, which was gospel music and the black gospel music. And then at 8 o'clock, I did a 3-hour show called Rhythm and Blues, which was the forerunner of rock and roll. And at 11 o'clock that night, I would do Rockin' Around Midnight. Anyway, going back to Spiritual Ship, I get a call. I did all those programs for years. And I get a call from a Bishop Jones, wanted me to MC a gospel concert at the Met in Philly. Huh. And I said, okay, sure. And we settled, we got the date and everything done. And I go over on the night of the concert, walk in and ask the usher, where is Bishop Jones? And he says, oh, standing over there. I walk over and introduce myself, and he almost turned white. He thought I was black. But I did the show, and I got a standing ovation, and they invited me back for several gospel concerts at the Met. It was fun.
Well, Pat, the only thing I can say is whenever I see the word Delsey from now on, I absolutely think of you. I'll think of pleasant memories of this conversation.
I enjoyed all the stories.
So God bless all of you. It's been, as I said at the outset, I've been a little bit more than a year retired from radio. Have no regrets, have an enormous amount of thanks for 51 years. I started this when I was a junior in college, and 20 of those years obviously were TV, and then the tail end when I finished up at KYW, which was just a wonderful, wonderful place to work. And I really felt like I left feeling that everything I wanted to do in broadcasting, I was able to do at some point or another.
I think all the people on the show can say what I always say: never worked a day in my life.
Right. If you have the job you love, you never work a day in your life, and that's a fabulous opportunity to add.
Molly, if I could just insert this one final thought.
Yeah.
For whatever you've done throughout your 51-year broadcasting career, you have always been a total pro.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's kind. I came up through college and through the beginning of my era in the business being taught by people who could do everything. It was the older generation. Everybody was not a specialist. You didn't just do sports or just do weather or just do news. You did a little bit of everything. And I'm very glad that that's the way I was trained, because I had a mentor for a college professor. And then when I got into the business, a couple of people mentored me. And that was the way I was groomed to do everything. And I have absolutely no regrets. I think, did I do some stupid things? Sure. Did I suck on some of those things? Yeah. But all in all, I look at it with great memories. But, after 51 years, you say it's time for somebody else to do it. But that doesn't mean that we don't have memories that we can take with us for the rest of our lives. Gang, I want to thank you so much, and especially Bill for the technical end, and Jack, I thank you for producing this whole thing. So that's it for me, guys and ladies. It was wonderful to talk to you. It was a kind of
Stay safe.
Good job.
Stay safe. Good job. Stay safe, everyone.